Welcome to AFSPA Talks, a production of the American Foreign Service Protective Association. Each month, we deliver informative health and wellness topics you want to know about, so make sure to subscribe to us on your preferred podcast platform. And if you have any questions about content discussed in this episode, ask them at AFSPA Live, our live Q&A session streaming every last Thursday of the month at 11 a.m. Eastern Time on youtube.com/AFSPA Cares. Now here's your host, Chief Executive Officer Kyle Longton.
Welcome to another episode of AFSPA Talks. This is Kyle Longton, and with me is my co-host,
Maddie Norton.
Maddie, happy July.
Happy July.
It's extraordinarily hot here in the DC area.
It is.
There's a lot of memes going around online and other things, but I'll just leave it at it's extraordinarily hot as we've been recording this. So maybe it'll cool down by the time this actually reaches our listeners.
Fingers crossed.
But it's also a hot month for events from AFSPA.
Exactly.
Yep, you like how I worked that in?
I
Good.
did. That was good.
I just encourage people to go to afspa.org/events. We've got a number of webinars. We're letting people stay in their homes, stay cool, or whatever they need, and joining us from there. But we've got some with our partners at Prudential, and we also, if people don't get enough of you and me from this podcast, they can join us for AFSPA Live. And when is that this month?
It is on Thursday as per usual, but July 25th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and you can always watch it live with us, which we would love, or you can watch it after the fact whenever you want, because it's automatically on our YouTube page, which is at AFSPA Cares.
Excellent. And do we have our topic lined up for this month? I know we just talked about this.
Yes, we did. Our topic will be we're going to have a guest from Second MD, and we're going to be talking about
our expert second opinion service there for stateside with the Second MD. It's a change this year. It's a new service. It's supposed to be fantastic from those I've talked to who have used it. So I'm looking forward to myself learning more about it and hearing how it can help our members.
Right. And we are very excited to have, I'm pretty sure we'll have Lisa from Second MD with us. And so if you have any questions, please submit those. We'll have a form out pretty soon before the 25th. Any questions you want answered, you can fill out that form, or you can email us at outreach@afspa.org.
Excellent. Are you traveling at all this summer?
I am. I'm actually going to New Orleans in August.
Sounds like a terrible idea, but I hope you have fun.
Right. Yep. Can't wait for the humidity. Very excited.
Yes, if DC wasn't bad enough for you.
Right.
So yeah.
I was like, where can I go that's worse? Right.
Well, I actually have a couple trips this month. I was last week in Philadelphia with a group of our members and teachers from the Federal Education Association. Had an opportunity to talk to them about FEHB generally and some changes coming to Medicare. Doing the same with the retired Dodds teachers. Actually, the week that this podcast is coming out, and that's taking me home to my home state of Kentucky. So I'll get to see some family while I'm there. But you know, I don't know about you, but when I get a chance to travel, I can relax, put stress aside. I get sick.
Right.
And so, unfortunately, sickness doesn't take a vacation, or we take it along with us on vacation.
Exactly.
I visited an emergency room when I was a kid because of ear infections when we went to the beach.
Oh, the worst.
Yep. And the sunburns and everything else, we'll put that aside. But medical needs don't know about our vacations. They also don't know about state borders when we're traveling, or even international borders when our members are traveling or changing post overseas. And I'll just put in a quick plug. If you are changing posts, this is the season for it. Please let us know. Update your address through the AFSPA member portal or by contacting us. But if you need to use your coverage when you're traveling or when you're overseas and you need some help, guess what? We've got your back.
It's true.
We've got a partnership with Teladoc Health, both in the U.S. and outside the U.S. for, in this case, in the U.S., general medicine, mental health, dermatology, and nutrition services. And today's episode, actually, AFSPA talks about overseas telehealth services from our partners at Teladoc. And I'm delighted we have a returning guest today. And I have had the chance to talk to him online and twice in person, once in, if you can believe it, February of 2020. He came to our offices just before things shut down. And again, when I was in the UK last year. And so our guest is John McQuillan. He's the general manager for Insurance UK and Global Markets at Teladoc Health UK. But Manny, I think you've got a little bit more about him.
I do. John is the leader of the UK and global divisions of Teladoc Health UK. He's the world's Teladoc Health UK is the world's #1 virtual care organization. Working in virtual healthcare delivery since 2016, John is deeply passionate about empowering all people everywhere to live their healthiest lives by transforming the healthcare experience. John is a University of Sussex alumnus who has established business development success across various market-leading global brands. He has built experience in multi-sector selling, managing C-suite relationships, and building successful teams. This includes multinational and national account management, pricing strategies, and multi-million-pound contract negotiations. Within Teladoc Health UK, John has led the business through phases of accelerated growth as a board member and as a manager of several departments. John prides himself on working hand in hand with corporate customers to drive key initiatives to promote a healthier and more engaged client population. And we are so excited to talk with him today.
Absolutely. So without further ado, we'll get to our interview. And John, welcome back to AFSPA Talks.
Thank you, Carl. It's great to be here. Great to have the opportunity to talk to you again. Look forward to getting into the discussion about how we support the AFSPA population through the virtual care platform.
Absolutely. And for longtime listeners, you will recognize John's voice. He was with us almost exactly 2 years ago to talk about similar topics, but I'd like to think we've got some new listeners since then, and if not, others may need a refresh. So I'm excited to talk about this again. Before we really start and dig into why we have John here today, I just want to provide some basic information for our listeners and note that our partnership with Teladoc Health, both within the US and what we're focusing on today, our overseas services, that those services are classified as telehealth services for foreign service benefit plan members. That means that they are covered at 100%, so no out-of-pocket costs for FSBP members, and also no limit on the number of visits. So just keep that in mind. We'll probably repeat it again later, but I want to put that out there for our members. So, John, focused on overseas telehealth services in partnership with Teladoc Health. Can we just start off with an overview of the services that are offered to members outside the United States?
Yeah, we can indeed, Carl. So members have got 24/7 access to two key services, and that's at the convenience of the touch of a button via an app or a portal. The first one is the telehealth solution. So that rolled out in 2018, and to your point, how time flies. I can't believe it's been 2 years since the last dialogue, but several years since we kickstarted the relationship. So that service is to support members with their primary care concerns. And when we talk about that, we're enabled to support them with a wide range of the needs that you would expect within a primary care setting. So that's coughs, colds, rashes, sore throats, joint pain, sinus pain, headaches, pink eye, you name it. We see it really within primary care setting, and no two cases are ever the same. The other service.
I'm sorry, I just want to jump in. I think what you described are sort of reasons why many of us would go to a primary care doctor in person, or in the US to a walk-in clinic or even an urgent care clinic. And you can do all this from the convenience of your home without having to go back and get that consultation. But I interrupted you there. I want to hear more about the second service that you were, I think, about to tell us.
I was so eager to get on to the next one. So we've got a wide array of conditions that we're able to support within telehealth. And we also, in addition to that service, we have the mental health service that launched in 2021. And this is where members can access a counsellor, coach, psychotherapist, or psychologist. And that's via the same app or portal. And that's for a support of a really wide range of mental health and well-being concerns. So similarly to the telehealth service, there's a wide range of situations when it comes to mental health and well-being. And some that spring to mind are relationship issues, imposter syndrome, coping with illness recovery, processing grief. But by far the most common conditions that we support our populations with are stress and anxiety.
And I know that Kyle has mentioned a bunch before that we saw a decrease in telehealth services across our members, but we saw an increase in mental health services. And I think that's really important to talk about, because I know I've used the mental health services via telehealth before, and it's just very, very convenient when you're just trying to access help, especially when it was during the pandemic. And we'd love to know more about the mental well-being services and how it's available to FSBP members around the world. So if you could dive into that.
Yeah, good question, Maddie. So maybe I'll pull out a couple of stats to begin with, and then I can lead into that.
Yeah.
So it may be surprising to you or not, but nearly 1 billion people in the world live with mental conditions. So that's like 13% of the whole global population who have to live with a mental disorder or condition. And that's indiscriminate across genders. This affects everyone. And 60% of all conditions are anxiety and depression. Some other surprising things are that the World Health Organization has estimated that 12 billion working days are lost every year to depression and anxiety, which costs $1 trillion per year. Now, also the WHO, the World Health Organization, have issued a warning that mental health is on the brink of becoming the next global pandemic. Now, because it's a slow burn, if you like, over decades, unlike, for example, COVID-19, it seems that somehow it's more acceptable, but the threat is there, it's present and it's growing. But the positive news is people have more availability to seek support than they ever have had before. So in terms of the service and how that's useful for the FSBP audience, is that it provides a really safe space to have an open and vulnerable discussion with somebody that's trained to listen and to support you. Often patients will tell us that it's the first time that they felt listened to for the very first time. And we can support patients on a one-time basis or over the course of several sessions, if some deeper work is required, to make sure that they feel very positive about the conclusion of their interaction with our service. We have a very high satisfaction rate. So the population rate the capabilities of our therapists, the discussion and the recommendation rate, and that's all coming in at 100% currently. And then we're also improving the overall mental health of our population by about 75%. We reduce anxiety, we support patients to cope better, and in fact, we increase their happiness. So there's a variety of things happening there through picking up the phone or engaging through the Apple portal with one of our mental health and well-being practitioners.
Right. And I think something that people underestimate is that it can be a lot, and it can be stressful to set an appointment, drive to the appointment, or however you get there, wait in the waiting room, and then meet face to face to talk about, some of your deepest thoughts, fears, things like that. While, if you're doing it from the comfort of your own home or wherever you may be, it's a lot more, you're almost taking more control of it, if that makes sense. And so you don't have to worry about additional things like traffic or things like that. And I think that just with the statistics you said, it's showing that people appreciate that and are making use of it. And thankfully, that's something that our FSBP members can use.
Yeah, Maddie, I couldn't agree more. So convenience is a big reason to engage the service, because it can be tapped into anytime through Apple portal, and then very quickly you're engaged with a professional. And then really they can sort of work through what's needed in your specific instance. So they'll look at you as an individual and they'll listen to what you need. But really that convenience of access, as you quite rightly mentioned, means no queues, no travel, And it reduces really things like stigma or
Right.
potentially additional judgment that that individual may experience or may just feel having to navigate that journey.
And I really appreciate, because we do see an increasing need for mental health services. We've got, as Maddie noted, that's the one area that increased, but it's also one of our top categories just overall for the health plan spend throughout, honestly, the last 4 or 5 years, and that's not likely to change for 2024. And so I appreciate that. I want to get maybe a little bit more into the mechanics for our members. So I want to just, for the overall program, and if there's any difference between the general medicine and the mental health, please let me know. But are these services available to all of our members overseas, or is there like an age restriction of any kind?
Yeah, Carl, so they are available to all members, but let me walk through some of the nuances of how your members will access the service. So in terms of who can use the service, both services, so that's the telehealth, the GenMed, and the mental health and wellbeing, are available to eligible members that we share or you notify us via a live file that's then updated with new members that arrive onto the program and other members that depart from the program. And this includes adults and child dependents. Now, anyone over the age of 18 needs to register for the services in their own right, whereas up until that point, so up until 18 years of age, the dependents can be added onto the main applicant's app or portal account. So they become a family member. But when they reach 18 years of age, they register in their own right through the same mechanism with the same app and portal. Now, for telehealth, for minors, typically we're consulting with the parent and the child at the same time about the child's health. And with regards to mental health and well-being, for children below 10, the parents are offered a one-off consultation to discuss concerns and are provided with advice and signposting if appropriate. But above 10, a member of the mental health and well-being team will be able to support with a one-off 90-minute consultation with the minor. And that's really to assess what's going on and make appropriate recommendations to the parent or guardian. So they're then provided with advice on self-care, resources on seeking further support, and provided with a detailed report following the consultation. So there's a few nuances, but effectively this is applying to everyone. But the way in which they use that may differ depending a bit on the service that they're going to engage us with.
And thank you. The way you provide that, I think we'll be able to pull some of that out and post on our social media sites, because I think that's something that our members maybe don't understand, particularly about the consultations available for those under the age of 18 and how to access those. So I think, thank you. That provides some clarity for me as well when I get questions. You've asked, I'm sorry, I'm going to ask, you've referenced a couple times how members can access the services through the app or the portal and so forth. Can you talk a little bit more, just again, on that mechanical level? How do our members access the services from outside the US for Teladoc Health?
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways in which they can do that. So one is to simply download the app or portal. So that's the vHealth Worldwide by Aetna app. Download this and register your details in that app or portal. Once you're in, you are guided on how you then engage the service. You either request the telehealth interaction or you're taken down the mental health and well-being pathway. We also have a couple of telephone numbers as well. So we have the US number, which would be available to call 24/7, which is +1 857 256 3784. And we also have one that's a UK prefix, but can be dialed from anywhere in the world as well, which is +44 20 3499 2851. So it's either call in or simply download the app and you're engaged in the services.
Perfect. And we'll be sure to have those numbers on the screen and in the show notes for anyone who's listening using our podcast. And, you know, we've often had questions during AFSPA Live, our webinar that we do each month, about how is this handled via licensing? Because, you know, you guys provide services for over 200 countries around the world. And so how does Teladoc handle licensings there? Are there different levels of service that people can have? Or in different countries even? We'd love to have that question answered for our members.
Yeah, I think the first thing to note is we're supporting patients in over 190 countries on a daily basis. So we're very, very used to operating a global model of care delivery. Now, you're quite right, Maddie. What that means is there's still going to be some difference depending on where that member is located. So number one, we make that very clear to any individuals that access the program in terms of what would be available to them. So if their ambition is to receive a prescription, and we know that maybe there's a territory where we would guide to over-the-counter medication, then we're very, very clear with the patient that that's going to be their journey after they engage with us. It's probably worthwhile to note that about 15% of our consultations roughly end up in a prescription fulfillment. So there's a huge swathe of customers that we will assist without that ever being required in terms of a prescription. And also there's a huge swathe of countries out there whereby over-the-counter is a very kind of widespread availability of medications as well. So clear to the individual that's using the program, there will be differences in terms of what will happen on their patient journey, but that's made clear to them throughout the journey. And there's value because they are able to access a very highly qualified GP or primary care physician to give them a high level of reassurance around the care that they're embarking on, or to sort of change what they're doing and maybe go in a slightly different direction. So I think there's that level of expertise and consistency that really ensures that the members can trust the advice that's given, irrespective of where they're dialing in from the world.
And I think this is a great, lead into discussing maybe some examples of anonymous, of course, but some examples of how FSBP members have utilized the Teladoc Health services outside the US.
Yeah, exactly. This is all anonymized. Everything's been sort of changed and to protect everyone's information, of course. One example of a telehealth case, and this is something we would experience quite a lot, is a male based in Asia, and he had sickness, high fever, cough, sore throat, and a stomach ache for 24 hours. He really was probably under the impression that he had some sort of allergic reaction, but our doctor went through a consultation with him and managed to determine that really the symptoms that he was displaying were very likely viral related, and that it was expressing itself in hives that he was experiencing. So with that, there was a recommendation in terms of, in this case, again, over the counter, that a specific antihistamine would be supportive of him to help prevent the itching and to take a cool bath to help improve his discomfort. And this patient was really grateful. They described the service as vital for those Americans living overseas because of localized medical systems not facilitating adequate levels of care, and that it can be very cumbersome to navigate those. And he really appreciated the service. So these kind of cases come up with great frequency. Another example is a child based in Europe, and they had one-day history of stomach discomfort. And now, obviously, when it's a child, it's very emotive, and you just want to get your child in a constant state of health and make sure that they have what they need. So he began to vomit and started vomiting. But the doctor, again, through a detailed discussion with the parent, determined that the patient very likely had food poisoning. And they were instructed to monitor the symptoms. He was instructed to increase his hydration and was provided with some over-the-counter medical advice as well. And the mother was really grateful at the advice provided and understood that she could always come back into the service at any given time. So there's a few different outcomes that we experience. It may be a full prescription, it may be over-the-counter, and in many cases, actually, it's guidance to be able to help you or your family member at home, given a kind of length of time. So watch this for 24 hours, watch this for 48 hours, but we're on hand to be able to support you. And then there's another example that we have in terms of a patient who engaged over a video consultation. And the doctor had noted that they were exhibiting a noticeable weakness on the right side of their face, sort of unable to wrinkle their eyebrow. And the doctor actually suspected through their interaction that the patient may have something called Bell's palsy, and signposted him to an emergency centre. Now that's important because there may have been a potential stroke, or there were symptoms that are very similar to stroke. But again, engaging in our service means that you may not want to do that and go to an emergency care setting, but if you've been advised that actually from one of our doctors that's the right thing for you to do, and you get equipped with the questions to ask on your physical journey, then there's a lot of value that's sort of promoted within that journey. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a feel for the kind of wide array of things that occur within the primary care service, and some of the sort of potential outcomes that happen as a consequence.
Yeah, and I think especially if you're feeling ill or just wanting to get better, it can be super frustrating to have to go through things like prior authorization or not knowing like what's going to happen if I show up to the pharmacy. And it's great that Teladoc has guidance for patients and FSBP members who are just wanting help, just wanting to get their prescription and things like that. So those were some great stories to share. So thank you for saying that, John. And before we wrap up, is there anything you'd like to add or anything that we may have missed talking about today?
Well, I mean, I had a couple of cases on the mental health and well-being as
Yeah,
well, to give you a feel for that.
we would love to hear those.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a flavour for what occurs on the mental health and well-being. One example was a 10-year-old child who had recently moved to Europe and was struggling to adjust. That can be a tricky dynamic. Obviously, you're changing school, and the setting is very different to what you've been used to. The parent was seeking advice and guidance on their child's care and a support plan, and this was considered in detail by one of our psychologists. And basically, that allowed the patient and family their needs to be considered. The support currently in place was explained and considered, and some alternative treatment options were suggested in the forms of ongoing therapy. Some special consideration was given to communication and dynamics within the family. And really, the session gave reassurance overall, some psychoeducation, as well as alternative therapy options for the parent whilst overseas as well. So we think that that's very valuable in a kind of situation that is unsettling and takes some time to adjust. We've also seen an example of a female in her 40s in Asia. She was experiencing very high levels of anxiety. We approached her care from both person-centered and solution-focused approaches, kind of therapeutic approaches. And the client identified that whilst her anxiety started with a physical diagnosis and feeling fearful about accidentally eating things that could make her unwell, her anxiety levels increased upon returning to work after being in lockdown. So over the course of the interaction, our practitioner encouraged the client to engage in self-care and lots of breathing exercises. And they had reported that this had drastically improved their symptoms. We use a kind of clinical scoring measure, and the patient's psychological distress had reduced to what we call within the non-clinical range. So they were feeling much better, a much better outlook, and she reported that her sessions had left her feeling more hopeful about the future as well. But we've got many other cases of patients who receive CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, compassionate focused therapy, and just have an avenue to engage with somebody in a very private setting. We've helped with relationship issues, and we've also had a very big impact on people that have kind of changed their circumstances and need a support network to help them adjust to their new setting. And we also have scenarios of people that have retired as well, and that's a change in lifestyle and a change in circumstance. And in this lady's case, she was having panic attacks, and we helped make sure that we gave her grounding techniques and a really rational plan to move forward with her care. So in the end, she was happy with the sessions and was intending to sort of resume some travel that she had planned. So just a whistle-stop tour, but it gives you a strong sense of not only the kind of wide array of the telehealth types of cases that we support your population with, but also the mental health and well-being as well.
And I think that those are the perfect cases, because we see a lot of sort of general adjustment disorder diagnoses come in across all of our mental health claims, and particularly the case you cited with a child who was having challenges adjusting to life in not only a new country but on a new continent. Very well known to our membership for a long time. It's just nice to know that there is sort of pretty immediate assistance and assessment available with ongoing recommendations. So John, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you for shedding some light on this truly underutilized service that we offer to our members. So hopefully that will change and we'll start seeing more utilization. And we look forward to having you back again sometime in the future.
Thanks, Carl. And we don't have to wait 2 years for the next one, but I'm here. I'm willing to participate because obviously I feel very passionate about this, and it's great to have the platform to do that. So thank you, Kyle, and thank you, Maddie, for your key questions today and the conversation.
Thanks again to John McQuillan from Teladoc Health for joining us today. Please refer to the episode notes for links and phone numbers mentioned in this episode. For full information on coverage for telehealth services through our partners, Teladoc Health, both in the US and worldwide, please refer to the FSBP brochure found on our website, afspa.org/FSBP. This has been AFSPA Talks, a production of the American Foreign Service Protective Association. All information offered in this podcast is meant to be educational. The views expressed by the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily represent AFSPA. Should there be any discrepancy between information offered in this podcast and official plan documents for the Foreign Service Benefit Plan or other products offered by AFSPA, the policy provisions will prevail. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe or follow AFSPA Talks to catch our next episode. Please rate and review us on your favorite podcast app and share feedback with us on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks for listening to this episode of AFSPA Talks. Be sure to subscribe to our channel so you'll never miss an episode. If you have any follow-up questions about the topics in this episode, join our AFSPA Live Q&A session on the last Thursday of every month. We will be streaming live at 11 a.m. Eastern Time on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/AFSPA Cares. Thanks for listening.